see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and a giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and a giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Well, good evening, folks. It is Tuesday night, and a couple of things that we're doing here differently tonight. One is that normally you guys, and you still can see it over on tbltv.tv. Of course, welcome into the one-on-one with Angel, my guest, Audley Stephenson. But getting through all the stuff here tonight, you can also watch us over on YouTube for the first time throughout the entire season. And the reason is because we're just coming off now the NBLC playoffs, where the London Lightning are back-to-back champions, an amazing season that they have. And then the end games are being played right now on the TBL side. So I know a lot of folks are tuning in right now to TBL TV to those games. So I had to kind of switch it up a little bit. We threw up there on YouTube. Tomorrow, we're also going to have the Super Show as well. So we're going to have a couple teams that are playing in tonight with us tomorrow. Also, Cable Guy Chris with me and Nate Govin. Also, if you're listening on AMP Radio, I appreciate everyone tuning in, and over on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, from overseas and all around the world. As tonight, we do welcome the commissioner from the National Basketball League of Canada. He's been with them since the inception, 11 years strong, and it is incredible what Audley Stephenson has done. So, Commissioner, thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a crazy busy season for you, but I thank you for joining me here tonight.
Angel, thank you very, very much. You talk about busy. I watch you and I get dizzy. This is all you've got going on. So thank you for making some space for me now to hang out here like this and just celebrate and talk about the game of basketball that we all love.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, we'll also get into as well some of the NBA action, because it's been, man, you know what? Matter of fact, we're going to start with that at the moment here before we get into the London Lightning and different things. But how about you have the Celtics, right? So, and for the basketball fans that are tuning in, and we appreciate everyone tuning in here tonight, but for the Celtics fans, where you thought it's never been done in the NBA, and you would have thought, like, all right, Celtics are on the move. Seemed like everything was just, clicking in all cylinders. You come home. I mean, how much better of a scenario can you get of a Game 7? You end up coming home, you can put it away, and you lose it.
Wow. I think there are a lot of even non-Celtic fans who are rooting for the Celtics simply for the fact that this has never, ever been done before. We're talking about a team coming all the way back from a 3-0 deficit to win a series. It's never, again, I'm going to repeat that. It's never happened. So watching the Celtics come all the way back from 3-0 to force a deciding Game 7, which was winnable, by the way, that there were opportunities for them to get that game. It was just outstanding. And look, for a basketball fan, it was a dream come true. I remember when the Celtics won Game 6, I'm watching the broadcast with your EJ and Chuck and Shaq and Kenny and Charles, and they themselves were talking about how excited they were about this Game 7, and so it was a really, really big deal. Kudos to for Boston to make it as interesting as it was, because the reality is, look, when they went up 3-0, there were a lot of people that said, yeah, the series is done, all right, whatever. And it's like, oh, they won one. Okay, they got one. Oh, they got two. And it was always that if they can get one more. And as you know, Angel, in sports, you just need that little bit of inkling, that little bit of space, that smidgen of that crack to get that motivation you need to move forward. And so it was fun to watch nonetheless. Congrats to both teams.
Yeah, it was. And again, you got to, the commentators, obviously, the broadcasters love Charles Barkley. And I say this to everybody in case no one knows. So Charles Barkley, when he started with Philadelphia, did not get and understand what Philadelphia was all about, right? You come into Philly, it's a hostile environment. I don't care who says what, it's just a hostile environment. Obviously, with the Raptors and the Sixers, a couple years ago, everybody understood that and they got it. But it's a different spectrum. It's a whole different world. So when Barkley left, got traded out to the Suns, he understood Philly after it was all said and done. If he would have stayed in Philly, could have been a good possibility. He could have won an NBA championship there. Probably. It could have happened. But unfortunately, he didn't. But he's great as a broadcaster, though, because he brings like all the feels and everything else that's in there. And he had, called it as well. He thought that the Celtics were going to do it. Miami they ran flat for 3 games straight. It's tough when you go up 3-0. You just win 3 games flat. But yesterday, you could see it at the second half. the beginning of the second half, Miami was just putting the pressure on the Celtics.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I will say, and Commissioner, you could probably agree with me here, if you live by the 3, you also die by the 3.
That's right. That's exactly it. No, you're absolutely right. That 3 ball can make you or break you, and when they're dropping, things are like life's good, right? Everything feels nice, but when they're not, then it's a long night. So
it is. It makes it an extremely long night. But listen, and speaking of about broadcasts and different things as well, I do have, if hopefully this works and flips out the way I want it. So let me go back over. Nope, maybe they didn't bring it up. There it is. So speaking of, I'm going to switch screens here because someone that I know here, pretty close and personal, you with your podcast. And this is by the way, for those who don't know, so Commissioner Stephenson has not only one, see, I feel like I have to talk about championships here. Not 1, not 2, number 6. It is incredible what you've been doing. And it's amazing to me. Not only do you take time, obviously, to make sure that the NBLC is running smoothly, but then you also have your podcast as well. So I getting to the flip side of things here, because I want people to understand when they tune in to this show is to get everybody, to know what they do away from what their daily duties are. So it's amazing to me, Commissioner, that you have the time to be able to put together this terrific, podcast here called the bestaudaciouslife.com. If you guys don't check it out, please do so as you see it up there on the screen. But, how do you find the time amongst everything else to be able to put it together? And I've heard a couple episodes and it's very, very smooth. I like the way it runs.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I think to answer your question, how do you find the time? It might resonate with you, because I truly believe that the things that you're passionate about, the things that you enjoy, the things that you love, you'll always find energy and time for them. You'll always, and that's why I've always been a big proponent for staying close to the things that you love as much as you can, because you'll find the time, Angel. In those late nights, you when you're tired, you want to get some sleep. Maybe you just want to edit that last video clip or that last podcast. It's just the way it is, and it energizes you, and it gives you. So let me back up, because I think it's important that I give you the context. I've been podcasting for a very, very, very long time. The very first podcast I embarked in was in 2008, and this was long before podcasts were podcasts. Now they're like a business card; everyone's got one, right? Well, back then it was an unheard phenomenon. What's a podcast? Even what that was. And myself and a buddy of mine, we were based in Toronto, Canada. At that time, the Raptors weren't hot; they were losing, so no one really cared a whole lot about basketball. We're a hockey country, but we were still in love and committed to the game of basketball, and we decided let's create a platform to elevate the game that we love. And there's this thing called podcasting that we can do that. And we sort of jumped on that and created what was called at that time the NBA Breakdown, which is a basketball podcast. And we had, you mentioned the Phoenix Suns. We had, Kevin Johnson at that time, point guard of the Phoenix Suns, who played alongside Charles Barkley as guest. Just a whole host of NBA greats that came through, and we just sort of, and we were just excited the opportunity to talk. We're giddy. We're giddy. Like, these guys are taking our calls, they're talking to us, and so we just had a lot of fun with that. We ran that for about 5 years, and when it kind of came to the end of its run, I just had this podcasting bug, and I started finding more things to podcast about and more things that to talk about and what I wanted to talk about. And then what I started to do is really focus on things that mattered to me. And then I remember I had a podcast that focused on leadership and leadership development and how, and the skills required for people to be great leaders. And I brought all these experts and authors, and we talked about the topic of leadership. And then I went back and I missed basketball, so I started another basketball podcast because I'm excited about basketball. NBL Canada got started in 2011, and I switched gears and I said, let's do an NBL Canada podcast, and because I've developed this expertise and this reputation, this podcasting guy, and so I brought what I was doing NBL Canada, and that's actually how I got in. I was a volunteer, and I jumped on. I was doing podcasting in NBL Canada, and then I'm a lover of old school hip hop, and so I started a podcast called Down with the Kings, and I interviewed old school hip hop artists, just talking about hip hop and rap and how cool it was back in the day. And I'm talking to Run DMC and Young MC and Coolio and all these. It was a neat little thing I did, and I enjoyed it. Things started to ramp up with NBL Canada. I was really, I was finding my groove, and I decided to sort of put the podcasting stuff to the side for a moment and focus on what I was doing with the league. And while I was doing that, I was really entrenching myself further in the league and really proving to be of value to them. Not knowing that I'd be seeing the commissioner's chair one day, but very much wanting to be a part of it. And really, what I was doing was staying close to the things that I loved. I love basketball, so why not be as close to that as I possibly can? I wasn't good enough to play on the court. I wasn't, I'm 6'1". I'm not really fast. I don't got much of a jump shot. I got a little bit of the handles, but that's as far as it goes. So what else can we do to stay close to the game of basketball? And I found a way, and I sort of stuck to my strengths because I had all this podcasting expertise. In 2017, I was appointed NBL Canada Commissioner, and that became a whole other journey for me, which was wonderful. The learnings, the lessons, but also the opportunity that I had to impact the league in a different way. Because if you think about it, I had come up through the league from a content development guy. I was doing communications for the league. I got involved with sort of strategy and things of that nature. So I had all the stuff behind me, and I was able to use that into my new role as leader of this organization. In 2020, I'm giving you this whole journey here, but it does make sense, James, so bear with me. So in 2020, March of 2020, we all know this thing called a pandemic hit, and the world stopped essentially, including basketball. And I didn't know at the time, but I was severely depressed because I was like, this thing that I love, and my story in that regard probably is similar to a lot of other people's stories who had the thing that they enjoyed and loved taken away from them. And so basketball, I lost. It was taken away from me. And I remember going through a state of depression, figuring out what the heck is going on and what can I do and what's next. And I remember a quiet voice in the back of my head said, yo, you're a podcaster. This podcast, you can do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've done 5 or 6 other podcasts prior. Why not try something new? And while it really could have been easy for me to start yet again another basketball podcast, I wanted to move in a different direction, and I wanted to focus on things that were important, that mattered to me. And I really started doing an analysis of my life in terms of, and I started to look at sort of my accomplishments, my achievements, successes, and the one theme, that sort of red thread that remained throughout all my life was that all my successes were on the strength of me demonstrating this form of audaciousness. And audacity was my key. Whether I recognized it or not, it was there. And the more I started to analyze and dig deeper into it, I realized that the greatest accomplishments were because I demonstrated boldness. I had courage. I was audacious. And that started the journey of the Audacious Living podcast that got me to what I have now. I think I'm approaching 100. I think I'm just under 200 episodes, something like that. I'm not sure how much I've got now, but I'm just under 200 episodes, and it's been a complete blessing because it allows me to share something that's important, that matters to me, that I'm passionate about. And really, it's about how can I encourage other people to capture that audacious spirit, the same one that I did, that got me to the place I'm at now, and they can use it in their own worlds and their own lives. And so that's in a nutshell. That's really the journey. So when you talk about the podcasting, it's something that's important to me. I truly believe that as human beings, we've all got layers to us. We're not just we're not just I'm a father, I'm an uncle, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a commissioner, I'm a podcaster. We're complex, and so. The more of that I think we can tap into, the more true and authentic we're being to ourselves. And so that's my journey in that regard.
No, that's true. And I'm going to get back to that in a second here because a couple updates and thank you for the folks who are tuning in right now. The AC Gambits move on. So they're in game and they're working out for them. They beat Syracuse, so they're in right now. I'm still waiting to see a couple of the other finishing finals here as the Reading Rebels were behind. Kokomo, at this point, it's up 96-93 in the fourth.
Wow.
They're live. Looks like they're on a break. And the Coastal Georgia Buccaneers, right now, the Georgia Soul Men are leading at 101-93. So those games are in the closing minutes. And then San Diego's getting ready to start up here. But, getting back to here on the between the TBL and then obviously the Basketball Super League, which is going to be fantastic come next year. But I wanted, a couple things you hit on there, Audley, is the big thing is, when you do a podcast and it's something that you love, right? And obviously I can hear the passion as you talk about it, as you describe it. I think for people to understand is that with the many hats that some of us end up wearing, you as a commissioner, right? You have one job assignment that you have to do. And I say one because there's many in that one. But the one job assignment you have to do as a commissioner is to make sure that everything, comes together, schedules come together, make sure the season gets ready to get kicked off. In that process that you're doing is also the other part of, what can I take away from this to then add to my podcast? And I think when you talk about content creation, where a lot of people get it really twisted is, it is not the easiest thing in the world because as everything evolves, right? You can have 50 million different podcasts that are out there. You have to figure out what's your niche. And the way you'll be able to figure that out is like, how do you gravitate towards your audience? What makes you different than everybody else? And so when you think about that, and you probably do it just like the way I do. In the middle of the night, I could wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, wait a minute, I got to write something down because I know I can use that on my next podcast. I know here's something that I can take away from. Or even when you walk around town, as you said, we all have different walks of life. And the best part is that you can look at someone else and just say, what makes them different from me? What makes them different from everybody else? And you can just study different people and think about like, okay, here's another part of the podcast I got writing down. So with me, it's sports, life, and entertainment on the Broad Street South side of the house. Nice. And it's fun because you can bring in all those different elements. Even if you're talking about sports, I always somehow or another bring those elements into different little things. Really? So I get and I understand exactly when you're talking about the audacious part of life because it is. Life is you can make it as beautiful as you want to. You can make it as complicated as you want to, or you can make it into a paradise if you want it as well. Absolutely. So I get it. I understand it. It's fun. If I wouldn't do, and I tell my guys on my team, the day that this isn't fun anymore, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore.
And that's exactly it. I mean, Angel, I go back to when I first heard you speak at the TBL owners meeting. I was at like February, and I remember you got up on stage and you spoke. I felt that passion. I felt it. I'm like, wow, this guy loves what he does, and you can feel the energy and the conviction in your voice, and so that's the thing that we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. The other point I think is significant that I want to make is that we all have a story, right? Yep. And that story does matter. I remember years ago, I entered into a speaking competition, right? And I wanted to do this. We were talking at the time. I was talking about leadership and how we all can be great leaders, and we all have this leadership thing inside of us. And I got up on stage, and Angel, I gave this great speech. It was energetic. It was to the point. People were smiling. They loved it. I'm like, yeah, I won this thing. The person that came up next right after me was a young woman. She was tiny, frail, petite, very soft-spoken, and she told this powerful story of being involved in this late-night car accident that nearly took her life. She described, the oncoming headlights coming on. She provided the imagery. It was just a powerful, compelling story, and everyone was left in awe. At the end of the night, her story was the one that won this competition. And I remember saying to myself, wow, like, I don't have a heartbreak story. I don't have, a near life death experience that I can share that can grab people. And I remember in that moment when I was talking about what I didn't have, I actually remember stopping myself saying, wait, no. It's not about what we don't have, it's what we have. We all have a story to tell. We all have something worth saying that our lives are enough, right? So every time we start thinking that we're not enough, and we make ourselves small and we shrink and we go, well, that person's got it better than I am, or they start to compare, that's when we do ourselves a disservice. And so for me, I very much, whether I've got one listener on my podcast or 100 or 10, it doesn't matter, because I'm coming forth with my voice, my story, and if it resonates with one person, then that's great. That's fine. I've done my job.
No, you're absolutely right, because that's the whole entire thing. You gotta end up feeling good. And I want to say hello to Queen Chronicles. Thank you for tuning in over on AMP Radio. I do appreciate it. And hopefully you're enjoying the chat here tonight. And no, you're absolutely right, Audley, because it's everybody, that's the best part. When you have the best story to tell and it's so engaging, people want to listen, right? We all know we've seen the change in the last 3-4 years here in America alone. Everybody's the same way. We come from all different walks of life. And thank God we do, because honestly, if we were all the same, thinking about it, if we were just a bunch of AI robots, speaking of AI, but if we were, it would be so boring, because it'd be like, so, explain to me what you did wrong. Nothing. Move on to the next person. So if the stories aren't good to tell, people just don't want to listen versus, and sometimes you can have somebody, and you may know this when you go to the games. Sometimes you'll see someone that just doesn't, I don't want to say that it doesn't look right, but it just seems like there's something on their mind. And then you take that moment and you just ask, hey, what is something bothering you? Are you okay? And the story that they start to tell intrigues you enough to think about, like, wow, if I didn't take that time away just for that moment to speak to that person, how much different could it have been for them that night? Because we never know. We are in a different environment that sometimes people think of suicide. Some people think of, different things. But if you take that moment and listen to that person, you can be surprised upon, what can happen. Just that one little change, that one little spark. So you're right, and believe me, well, I'll have you back on another time, because we'll get into a whole different set of topics as well.
Oh, sure.
But it's just, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes podcasting fun. That's what, when you bring people on, and I like to bring everybody on. So it's just, some people think, well, you just have former NFL players, former Major League Baseball players and GMs and stuff. It's not about that. If you got a good story to tell, I want you to come on, because I want you to share it with the world, so people can say, whether it's whether being a Karen, whether being a David, whether being Jamal, whomever it is, people have intriguing stories, and the only way they can share it is if they go on a platform, they're able to hear what's going on. So it may be related to basketball, but it always goes into different topics as well. So believe me, I this is why I love doing what I do, and that's why I spoke about it, in February, and I've been the broadcasting partner now for the TBL this season. It's been fun because the other teams have been saying, how much fun it's been when they come on. And they talk about it because this type of platform wasn't available before for the TBL. So it's been fun learning and growing with everybody. Tomorrow's show is going to be pretty much nuts, which I'm excited about. That's at 8:00 tomorrow night. But, Commissioner, it's just, I'm glad that you do what you do, that you've been doing it with, not only for the NBLC for now, 11 years, just taking the time away and taking the time just to be able to put together your podcast so everybody can see a different side, because we don't get to see a lot of times, as far as you being a commissioner, the same way with Carnell Wiley I had on earlier from the TBL, the commissioner from there as well. A lot of people don't get to see you guys in a different light. They know you as you're businessmen. You guys take care of business. You guys make sure schedules are met. All these different aspects of life. But when we get to see a different side of you guys, the laughing, the joking, what do I know that you were end up, you talk to hip hop artists, back in the day, that within itself had to be a lot of fun. So I appreciate it. And that's why I said, let everybody who's tuning in tonight, especially on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, he will be back on with us a couple of times, because I want to hear more and more of these stories, but
absolutely,
it's just fun.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Everyone's got a story. To really sum up what you said, everyone's got a story worth sharing, and we can take so much from those stories. And if we can use them to better our lives, that's the bonus. And so I'm thrilled. Yeah.
No, I agree. So now let's go back now, switching gears, and we'll talk about as far as the league. So Canada obviously starts off about a month, 3 weeks normally earlier than in TBL, but as we now get into the basketball Super League coming up here in December, things are going to change up a little bit. And so before I get to that, I want you to, at least talk about at least this season for Canada. First of all, the turnouts for some of these games you guys had turned out to be really, really well. Yeah. London Lightning knew the challenge they had in front of them. And I think with any major league team, when you start off, whether you're coming off a bad offseason, the goal is to go out and win that championship. Now, London can talk about and say that, we're going to go out there and repeat as champions, or we're going to defend our championship, but it's a long road. There's a lot of good teams in Canadian basketball. Yeah. And that's the one thing I think you have to prove yourself and see, like, it's a grueling schedule. Next year, it's going to be even a lot more tough, because you won't be just in Canada anymore. You're going to have North American games as well. Yeah. So for the Lightning being crowned back-to-back champions, that road to get their commissioner, obviously it was a tough one, but it also had to be nice too to crown them back-to-back champs.
The London Lightning, have been the standard in our league for a very, very long time. They've established a culture of excellence, quite frankly. In year number one, they won the very first championship in dominating fashion. They repeated the second year, and they won back-to-back championships in the first 2 years of the season. They took a couple of years off, and they won again back-to-back championships again. Right? They took a couple of years off, won back-to-back championships again. So 6 out of our, again, the league has had essentially 11 full seasons. COVID interrupted,
Right.
our ability to finish 1 year. So when the COVID year, we didn't finish that season, so we didn't crown a champion, and then we didn't play the following season, and so we lost essentially 2 years. But but in that time frame, out of the 11 champions, the London Lightning have picked up 6 of them. And again, the franchise just doesn't. They've established that bar, like I said, of excellence. And this year I thought was particularly rewarding for them to face Windsor in the finals. Windsor is the other team in our league that's also won multiple championships. So, Windsor and London are the teams that have won the most championships in our league in our history. And they've actually never, ever faced each other in the finals. So that was a night. And then as well, because of close proximity of these two teams to one another, there's already a rivalry that existed. We have a junior major hockey, Ontario Hockey League, and even at the hockey, they're rivals, right? So those two cities are always at odds with one another. Which makes for a nice rivalry because it's fans travel, which is always a treat to see. And in Game 5 in London, the Windsor contingent that came out to support their Express was absolutely phenomenal. And so, yeah, I'm really proud all across the board of the effort. The style of play, the competitiveness has always been high. The community and fan support is wonderful to watch. I think for me, probably one of the most enjoyable aspects of being at games is just having an opportunity to engage and discuss with fans and how appreciative they are having their teams in their communities and how excited they are and how supportive they are. So, yeah, this year certainly was a special year. Also considering that, NBL Canada will be transitioning over to the Basketball Super League. So in terms of a NBL Canada champion, this essentially, in theory, is the last one per se in this context. But we're also evolving to something bigger and better too. So there's a lot of excitement in that.
No, it is, and then, you gotta think about it as well. Excuse me here. And by the way, the final here, Albany Patroons end up moving on. They beat the Reading Rebels, so they are that game 2 of the 4 game plays are out. So right now, Albany and AC Gambits end up moving on. So again, multitasking, trying to figure out.
No, you're doing a good job, man. I love it.
I tried. And then Jamestown, that game is almost final. It's right now 109-100 Kokomo over Jamestown. So they're coming up in the closing minutes as well. But no, listen, you're talking about your 2 elite teams, right? And it's tough because when you come into these leagues, and I want people to understand this. I know a lot of people love the NBA. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. When you talk about the NBL of Canada, and there's also obviously your Eastern European teams as well, but you're also talking about the TBL. It's exciting games. It's not like you're going to, and not taking anything away from the high school level games. You're not going to watch a high school game. You're not watching semi-pro ball. You're watching pro basketball. So when you come to these games, the intensity is just like if you went to the next level. Obviously, a lot of these guys want to get over to the NBA. Yeah. So here you have now the milestone to get there. The good thing now, though, Commissioner, is that now with the Basketball Super League, a lot of these guys don't want to go anywhere because now it's building that next platform where everybody's saying, you know what, I did want to get to the NBA, but now the Basketball Super League is creating its own version of it. And the nice part about it is because you do have the elite teams like London Lightning, Windsor Express. When you come in now as a team or team market owner, you got to look at these elite teams and go, how were they able to build multiple championships? Just like the Shreveport Mavericks and the TBL. How did it get there? And where do we need to get to be to that point? So when you talk to the fan base, they tell you, you know what? You come out, you show up, they put a good product together, and that's the way they're able to do it. So this is why I can't wait for next season. And it's going to be before you know it. I mean, I know you just came off your season right now. We'll be back in India again. And
There won't be Angel. There's not going to be a whole lot of time for rest here. Like
no,
I mean, we just finished last week. We'll probably be getting together in July. For we're not probably will be getting together in July for an owners meeting and to sort of iron out a little bit more details around the Super League. And then we're into a schedule with expectation of early August to get it out. And having out early August gives our teams an ample amount of time to sell tickets, sponsorships, to do the business side of basketball, right? In time for a boxing tip off. So that window of break, that window to catch your breath, it's not very large, I got to tell you. So we recognize that. Yeah, well, it'll be here before you know it.
yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. There's not much time. So I want people to understand this. And so Commissioner Audley, obviously, we're there in February. Now, just to show you how crazy busy this gentleman is. So we have, the owners' meetings. We all sit around. We talk about, what the season's coming up. Then they break into different groups. And then we all come back together. Now, the hour before the Friday interview, and again, I want you guys to understand, I'm trying to paint a good picture here for you guys over on the radio side. So you take Commissioner Wiley, you take Commissioner Stevenson, they both go in the hallway. They're trying to discuss who's going to be hosting the All-Star game. And these guys make a video in between these meetings. So by the time the meetings get to wrap up, there's both commissioners talk about the All-Star game. So I want you to explain to everybody, because again, these are the many hats that you have to wear, and you guys put this together, obviously. And thanks to Lehigh Valley for hosting it. They did a phenomenal job this year. We'll get to see if maybe Canada hosts it next year. But, it was interesting to see it. So I like for you to explain to the viewers how that all came about in less than honestly, it felt like 5 minutes.
I will tell you, I absolutely, I'm a huge fan of Cardinal Wiley. I think he does a phenomenal job. I love his energy. I love his passion. I love his spirit. I've told him all these things always and often. I regularly do. I think he's wonderful what he does. And there's a lot of similarities in styles between he and I. And I think what happens is you bring two high energy people together, and you don't know what will happen. You don't know what will be created. I can tell you that video that you referenced, it was just on the fly in the moment. It just something that happened, and someone turned the camera on, and we were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I think the other thing that really speaks to why things worked out as well as they did is we respectively love the work. Like there's a genuine love for what we do. There's a love for what we do. There's a love for the impact that we can have. A love for the fact that the opportunities that we can create. And for me, there's so many pluses with the basketball Super League. But I'm really looking forward to working closer with Wiley and developing our relationship and finding ways where we can mutually impact the game in our respective countries. And so yeah, but look, it like I wish I could tell you we scripted it out. I wish I could tell you we were up the night before strategizing and plotting or whatever. In fact, I didn't even know he was going to be in the hallway. I just casually walked out there. I said, "Hey, Cardinal, what's going on?" And the rest is history. And so that's as best as I can tell you. I know it's not it's a very wishy-washy answer in terms of no excitement, no anything. We just did it, and I'm glad it turned out the way it did.
No, believe me, and that's all I was looking for. It's just that part right there itself, because it was interesting the way it ended up working out. By the way, Kokomo takes care of business over Jamestown, 110-101. So one game to go here. It'll be Coastal Georgia Buccaneers against the Georgia Soulmen, and right now it is just a 1-point difference, coming down to 14.1 seconds, 119-118. So you talk about some drama, you got it here in the TBL. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one closes out. But no, and that's what I wanted to hear, Audley, because it, again, like you said, you just walked out to the hallway. But the fun part about all of that getting together is the production that it ended up taking so quick. And like I said, it made it seem like you guys were just, you were practicing it, getting everybody ready. And it was put together right quick. But that's because it shows from you two gentlemen. And I want people to understand here, on both sides of the house, from the NBL side of Canada, and then over to TBL side, you have two commissioners that are very approachable. It's not like you make some people sometimes, and not against, anything against some executives,
Sure.
Some executives you meet and they'll give you, oh, hello, how are you? And then the minute they walk away, you don't know exactly who you are. The beautiful thing about both of you guys is you guys hang around, you talk to everybody, and what you see is what you get. It's not like I don't talk to you when during the meetings, and then we go talk at dinner time and you're a complete different person. Same energy during the meetings is the same energies I get at dinner time. So that's really respectable because that's something that you rarely see anymore. And I think that's where people need to be under more of an understanding so that when you see other folks that in, and we all know we all have different pay grades. We all
Sure.
know that we have different lifestyles and everything else. But
Yeah.
when you can connect and resonate with people at a level where everybody is comfortable, it makes it so much better. So I want to say thank you and applaud you for that as well, because
Yeah.
meeting you in February, it was a lot of fun because again, it was just such a natural conversation. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Well, and again, you resonated with me when I heard you speak, and I think we again we're all connected on some level as humans, right? When we're on this planet together, we're sharing it, we're here, and so why not make the best of the time that we have together? And so for me, every interaction I have with individuals are important. I quite frankly, truly feel that representing an organization such as mine, that is what my role should be, and so it was a really natural fit because that's who I am, right? And so if we can have impact, and there's a variety of ways each of us can have impact through our strengths and things that we do well and things that we are known for. And so for me, if I'm representing a league and I want people to be aware of this league, and I want people to understand what we're all about. That's not going to happen by people just chase. It could happen, I guess. Some people running me down and chasing me, but I got to be the one out there. I got to be the one waving the flag. I got to be the one establishing what our values are, what we stand for, and the things that are important to us. I've lost track of the number of people I've challenged to come to an NBL Canada game and not enjoy themselves. I regularly come on over. You want to check out? You've never been to a game before? Great, come on down. I guarantee you'll enjoy yourself. And that's the role. And again, Carnell, he very much echoes that. And why I appreciate what he does so much and how he does it and the way he does it. It's so interesting. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but there are some differences too. But it's however we get there. Again, that's why we're all on our own individual path, right?
Right.
Like this is what the destination is there. How you choose to get there, Angel, and how I choose to get there is entirely different. And so it's just sticking to things that you love. I appreciate what you do because I was in that podcasting space. That's how I came into NBL Canada. I came to them and said, "Hey, look, I can offer you something. I've got an expertise in something that no one else can bring to you." And it was true. By this point, I'd been podcasting, and remember, podcasting was still new back then, right? So they didn't even know what podcasting was. I told them I can do this, and that's been the journey. But my point is, whatever path we're on, that's the path we're on. Enjoy it, take pleasure in it, and do it with love and fun.
Nope, and you're right because it's the good part is an update here 121-118. You got 1.7 seconds left. Georgia Soul Men are up right now, so interesting. 1.7 seconds. 3-pointer, you tie it up. If not, so right now it's at the end of the Central Georgia Bucks. It's gonna be a tough one here as I'm watching here live, but but you're right because. It's the same way. I love what I do, and I was able to share that with the TBL, and TBL gave me the blessings to become the broadcast partner for them and share that vision because my thing is, and I'm not done by any means with them because the whole idea is now that the Basketball Super League is created, and believe it or not, the 3-pointer was hit. So
Wow.
may not be done yet. So let's see, we'll get the official word here. With no time on the clock,
Wow.
did they give it to him? It could have been. It looks like right now, according to the official scoreboard, it could go into overtime. 121. They're doing a replay to see if they actually hit the. The refs are talking here mid-court to see if they actually got the shot off before the buzzer. But no, listen, and going back to it because again, what I would love to see with the Basketball Super League now, and if it does happen, Audley, if it does happen, you'll be the first guest in the studio. My dream for this all to happen is to build a studio somewhere where everybody can come, enjoy themselves. They can kick back. We can talk about different things. Yes, basketball, obviously, we all want to talk about it because we see it between both teams here and both organizations. But I want it where everybody can come. They can talk about the stories. They can talk about life just in a kickback environment. So that's my next goal with
Nice.
all this happening here in the mix and everything else. And hopefully we'll talk about it a little bit more during the winter meetings, which would be a lot of fun before, things get kicked off. Hopefully even in Vegas, that should be good in the summer league as well. So there's a lot that I still want to get accomplished to make sure that it all happens. And the blessing of God and you guys, it can actually happen. But it's fun. It's fun talking hoops, but it's also fun talking and getting to know people on a whole different level. And that's what just makes it so enjoyable.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right because again, everyone's got a story behind them, right? And I love even with some of our players in the league, right? Talking, understanding, what was their journey to get to the point that they are now, right? And some of them have some incredible stories of adversity and challenges and commitment and dedication and all of those things to get them where they are. And again, everyone's got a different pathway. Everyone's got a different journey and story. And so I echo that with you as well. The opportunity to share. I can't say enough how much I just love the platform that you have. There's so much value in it, and I think you're doing a wonderful thing for TBL.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. And the update, by the way, the bucket did count 121 all, 5 minutes into overtime here. So listen, it's exciting for the fans that hung around. They're getting a good, exciting game. So let's see what ends up happening here. And then again, tomorrow, if you guys are tuning in tonight, you're just coming in from the other 3 prior games. Tonight with me is the National Basketball League of Canada Commissioner, Audley Stephenson, joining me here tonight. If you guys are tuning in over on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, I do appreciate it. Over on YouTube, TBL TV, and also over on AMP Radio. So lots of different ways to listen in to.
You got it all covered, man. You got it all covered. I love it.
I try. I try as much as I possibly can. But, it's just, as we're getting ready to close out the TBL season, everybody's chasing the Lily. You guys have already closed out in Canada. It's just, I'm so looking forward to not as much as the off season because some people get to take a break. Because for me, it doesn't stop. The shows will continue going all the way through until we get ready to see each other again here in December. The only thing I'm not looking forward to, and I know you're so used to the cold air. When we left here from Tampa, myself and my producer, it was 72 degrees that morning. When we arrived in Indy, it was 4 degrees. Now it's been a while since I lived in Philly in that cold air, but I'm like, oh man, but I still walked around in short sleeves. So at least that was good. But the reason why I bring that up, Commissioner, it was nuts to see a couple of the early games. And listen, kudos to the Canadian fans because one game, and if I remember either one in or back-to-back nights, there was a blizzard. And the fans that turned out, it's like, listen, to us, it's just rain. It's not snow. It's just rain because the stadiums were filled. And so God bless the fans who really support both, again, the TBL and the NBL because I don't know how in the world they did it. Unless you guys have like tractors that came in with crazy chain tires. It's amazing. So that fan base really stands behind, the whole entire, the entire league.
Well, yeah, I mean the winters they are what they are. I mean, you're living in Canada, you are gonna get a little bit more snow. You get more sometimes blizzards. We do get snowed in sometimes. So it does happen. We in the past we didn't have any. This past season we didn't have any team or games played in the Maritimes, but they get some really powerful winters and. Blizzards and things that may shut down cities, and I know Newfoundland they got hit a few times this year, pretty hard. But again, I think people understand is what it is. They still love the game, they still enjoy it, but it does get a little frigid. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I've been in Canada. The last time I went to Canada, and it's been some years, so I need to get back there again, but. So my dad and I decided to go on this camping trip, and he was like, listen, I know it's August. I know you think that, it's going to stay nice and hot in Canada. You need to bring some long johns, for the overnight. I'm like, Pop, what are you talking about? You're crazy. It was 92 degrees. Again, I'll just use this as when I left from Tampa. So this is when we were in Philly. We leave, it's 92 degrees. We get to Canada, it was about 89 degrees. Yeah. That night, it was down to 38 degrees. I'm like, are you kidding me? In the heat of summer. But you know what? You got to love it. It's my experience. It was one of those things. But Canada's, first of all, absolutely beautiful. There's a lot of great people up in Canada. I mean, you can find it here in America as well, but it's different. The air quality is so much different. When you breathe in, you actually breathe in life, which is a beautiful thing. I'm not a fan of the cold. I will say that much. But even if you go, I mean,
The
if
summers are
you,
great. I'll tell you that, Angel. The summers are great. I mean,
oh
we
yeah,
love good summers, but the winters are cold. The summers are great.
yeah, no, they are. And I will agree because it's so crisp in the summertime. That's the best part about it. Like it gets hot, but it's not like a burning hot. It's so comfortable. It's just if anyone is listening right now over on the sports radio side, which I know you guys are, go to Canada in the summer. And you guys, if you especially live here in Florida, make that trip up north because obviously we have the snowbirds. A lot of them have gone back home because it gets really hot down here in Florida. Everybody knows it's 1,000% humidity. We don't escape from the 90s until at least November, but some of us do love it, like myself. But it's a whole different change of venue. But before we end up wrapping things up here, and I know we can't give too much away because we still have a lot of team market owner meetings. We still have meetings with the league. I want you to at least to kind of describe to everyone what they can expect now, the difference between the NBL and as we get ready to move on to the Basketball Super League.
Well, as far as the talent on the floor, it'll be comparable to what we've seen. But what now is being introduced is you're going to have a lot more teams, right?
Right.
We're expecting in our first year to have anywhere from 7 to 12 teams in year number one, which is phenomenal. We have if you look at the 4 Canadian teams in NBL Canada that already exist, plus you've got the 3 Canadian teams in the TBL in Montreal, Quebec, and Newfoundland. There's 7 teams right there. Plus you have also I know there's some teams in the U.S. That are being talked to or considering it, and I know the final decisions haven't made, but we expect that again we're anywhere from 7 to 12 in year number one, and that's just phenomenal. That's just great. You'll see the same level of excitement. You'll see the same quality of play. I know TBL CEO Evelyn Magley. The aspect of community has always been a core tenet, and important to her, and so you'll see that as well. That teams are not just that we're not just in communities to play basketball, that we're part of communities, and so that's always been that's always existed with NBL Canada. So you'll see that, but I think more importantly, everything will just be elevated. And when you're playing because you're now playing at an international level, and not just within Canada, not just within the U.S. You're talking globally now, at a larger scale, a larger level. So we're expecting to do things bigger. Obviously, we'll do things better, and I think we're on the verge of something really, really special, and I'm excited. I'm really excited about it, and can't wait to see where it all goes.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait to see what's going to end up happening. I can't wait for the team meetings again, like, whether it be in the summer, or obviously in the wintertime, because I think it's going to be. I mean, last year we were pretty much pumped for the season to start, and then the news dropped during the offseason, so we couldn't say anything until obviously for David Magley once he made the announcement. But and there's still more to come. So I want people to understand that it doesn't stop here. There's still a lot more to come, which makes it even more exciting. So I want everybody to stay tuned because there's a lot more news to share and drop and everything else. So I can't wait for all of us to get back together. But listen, I've taken enough of your time tonight, Commissioner. I do appreciate you coming on.
Angel, this has been a pleasure. I could do this all night, man. This is great. Again, I love the energy. I love the passion. I love the score update too. That multitasking, awesome. You're doing a good job, my friend.
Thank you. I try. And by the way, they're up by 5 now, 127, 122 with 3 minutes left. So as I try to squeeze everything in here, but no.
I'm going to jump on now. Check it out, the ending there.
All right. Well, listen, Commissioner, I'm going to have you back on. I want you to get your proper rest. I know it's been a grueling season, so I want you to get that rest. But I'm definitely going to have you back on because I want to not only stay tuned to what you're doing, again, with your podcast. I want to make sure everybody understands and they know it here at the end. So I'll make sure I share it out on the social medias. But I definitely want to have you back on because it was a lot of fun. Obviously, a lot of energy. You and Commissioner Wiley, you guys ranked 1-2 here when it comes into, and tied for first. I'll put it that way from the energy level you guys end up bringing. But Commissioner, thank you so much for what you do for the NBL. Thank you for what you do for everyone. And I thank you for coming on with me tonight.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you. And I think the next time we bring Carnell and I together, both of us jump on, man. I had a lot of fun. Mark off about 2 hours, right? We'll probably need that amount of time Bring us both on. We'll have a blast.
Oh, definitely. If not, we'll do it up in Indy. We'll put it together in Indy, and then we'll really tear it up in Indy. So,
That's
listen,
awesome.
thanks again, everyone. Don't forget that there is more announcements being dropped here for the Basketball Super League, and also the playoffs have started for the TBL. As you guys have seen, a couple games have been underway. 3:23 left here for Georgia and the Central Buccaneers. So make sure you guys tune into that game as soon as this is over. But I thank everyone again for tuning in over on AMP Radio, Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, over on YouTube, and right here on TBL TV. With that all being said, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the week. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we'll be right back here again for the Super Show, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with Cable Guy Chris, Nathan Govin, and a bunch of other slew of guests. So join me tomorrow night right here over on 101 with Angel. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We do appreciate it. You guys all have a great night.